My son used to tell everyone I was slowing down, that I was forgetful, fragile, a shadow of my former self. The truth was, I was tired, not broken. But to Jason, tired meant useless. And to his wife, Evelyn, useless meant expendable. It started with concern that didn't feel real. They visited with smiles too wide, bringing soup and soft voices, asking where I kept the house deed, my banking files, and my spare keys. Just in case, Jason said, pretending to sound responsible. I wanted to believe he cared. I wanted to believe my own child wouldn't hurt me. A week later, they took me to lunch. "You deserve a break," Evelyn said, her perfume thick and sweet. "Just relax for a few days." When the car stopped, it wasn't at a restaurant. It was in front of a gray building with a sign that said Rosewood Care Center. They called it temporary. "Just rest, Mom," Jason said, avoiding my eyes. He hugged me like a man who had already buried me. When the doors closed behind me, I felt the air change, thick, silent, final. My name was on a clipboard beside a word that made my blood run cold. The nurse smiled like I was a child. "Your son signed all the forms. We'll take good care of you." I told her there had been a mistake. I wasn't confused. I wasn't sick. But she just patted my hand. "It's okay, dear," she said, the way you talk to someone fading away. That night, I lay in a narrow bed under buzzing lights, clutching the thin blanket like it could keep me anchored. My house was gone. My freedom was gone. My son, the boy I raised through hunger and heartbreak, had erased me with a pen stroke. But what he didn't know was that I still had one thing left, my mind. And as long as I had that, I wasn't done. So I stopped crying, I stopped begging, and I started planning. Because if Jason thought putting me away meant the end of my story, he was about to learn that mothers don't fade, we rise. He thought he'd locked me away for good, but he didn't lock the door on my will to fight. The days at Rosewood were all the same. Dull mornings, tasteless food, and the slow ticking of a clock that mocked me with every second. Most of the residents just stared at the walls or at their trembling hands, as if waiting for someone to remember them. I refused to be one of them. On the third night, when the halls went quiet and the nurses whispered over their coffee, I asked for a notebook. "I like to write," I told the night nurse. She smiled and handed me a spiral pad and a dull pencil. That little notebook became my weapon. I started writing everything I could remember: dates, bank numbers, property documents, Jason's habits, Evelyn's lies, even the lawyer's name, Clara Holt, the woman who helped me settle my husband's estate years ago. I knew Clara would remember me. She wasn't just my lawyer. She was my friend once. I didn't write about pain. I wrote about proof. By the fifth day, I'd memorized the staff schedule. I knew which nurse left her office phone unlocked and which hallway camera blinked out every night around 11 p.m. The world might have thought I was old, but I was still sharp. And that night, when the cameras flickered and the nurse dozed off, I made my first move. I dialed Clara's number from the office phone. My hands trembled as I spoke, but my voice didn't. "Clara, this is Martha Hayes," I said. "My son signed me into a care facility without my consent. I believe he's forged legal papers in my name." There was silence on the line. Then a sharp inhale. "Martha, oh my God, are you safe?" "As safe as a caged bird," I said, "but I need help." She promised to come by the next day. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the small window, staring at the parking lot lights. Jason thought he was clever, freezing my bank accounts, locking me away, and whispering to the world that I'd lost my mind. But he forgot one thing. I'd built that life he was stealing. Every penny, every brick, every inch of it had my fingerprints. The next morning, Clara walked into the lobby like a storm in heels. She showed her credentials and demanded to see me. The nurses fumbled, the manager stuttered. I could see fear ripple through them. When she finally stepped into my room, she smiled. "You ready to fight, Martha?" I nodded, more than ever. That was the day the walls of that nursing home stopped feeling like a prison and started feeling like the first step in my comeback.
Clara didn't waste a second. By noon, she had the facilities director cornered in his own office, surrounded by a mess of paperwork that suddenly didn't look so official anymore. I sat quietly in the hallway, watching through the glass as she laid into him like a judge with thunder in her voice. "Show me her admission papers," she demanded, "now." They tried to stall, muttering about family, authority, and medical concern. But when Clara slid her business card across the desk, the one that read elder rights and probate litigation, their tone changed. Within an hour, I was sitting in Clara's car, a soft rain tapping the windows. She handed me a paper bag with new clothes and a sandwich. "You're free, Martha," she said softly, "and now we make them pay." The air outside smelled like freedom, wet pavement and fresh start. For the first time in weeks, I breathed without feeling watched. We didn't go home. I didn't want to see that house, my house, with their laughter spilling out of the windows. Instead, Clara booked a suite for us at a quiet roadside inn. I sat on the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked tired, but alive, and that was enough for now. That night, Clara spread out documents across the table. Deeds, statements, emails, all pieces of the trap Jason had set. He transferred the power of attorney to himself, but the signature isn't yours, and your house deed still legally in your name. My jaw tightened. "Then we take it all back." "Better," she said, "we take it away from him." Over the next few days, Clara filed an emergency petition to revoke the fraudulent power of attorney and requested a full financial audit. She was sharp, sharper than anyone Jason had ever met. And when she froze the accounts he used to fund his shiny new lifestyle, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I could imagine his face when he realized the money had vanished, his mortgage unpaid, his pride slipping through his fingers. He thought I'd die quietly. Instead, I was reborn in paperwork and legal signatures. When the judge approved the first motion, Clara smiled. "Step 1 complete. Now we go for the house." I leaned back, eyes half closed, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: control. He took my home thinking it made him powerful, but he forgot one thing. I built that home with my bare hands, and now I was coming back to take it brick by brick. It took exactly 9 days for the court to move forward. Clara called me early one morning, her voice steady but filled with quiet triumph. "The judge signed it," she said. "Your son no longer has legal control over anything in your name." For a moment, I just sat there, letting the words sink in. No papers, no lawyers, no lies, just me and my freedom again. I smiled for the first time in weeks. But I didn't want to just reclaim what was stolen. I wanted to end what he started. We went after the house next. Clara filed a motion to enforce a partition sale since Jason was living in a property that wasn't his. She worked fast, faster than guilt could catch up to him. A week later, a courier served Jason and his wife, delivering the truth in a neat brown envelope. According to the report Clara got later, Daniel screamed and Jason went pale. The man who once called me a burden finally realized who he was dealing with, a mother who refused to die quietly. That evening, he called. "Mom, you can't be serious. You're selling my house?" I didn't hesitate. "You mean my house? The one you locked me out of?" He stammered, searching for words that wouldn't save him. I hung up before he could find them. For the first time in a long time, the silence after the call felt peaceful. When the sale went through, Clara met me at the notary's office. We finalized everything in less than 20 minutes. The new owners were a young couple, full of hope, full of laughter. I handed over the keys and wished them the kind of peace I'd been denied for too long. After the sale, Clara turned to me and said, "Now what, Martha? You've won." But winning wasn't enough. I wanted something that stayed, something that reminded him every single day that I was still standing. So I found the perfect house. Cozy, sunlit, and right next door to the one Jason had thought was his victory. When the papers cleared, I packed my few belongings and moved in quietly. No announcements, no grand gestures, just me, my tea set, and my peace. The morning he stepped outside and saw me sitting on the porch, I didn't say a word. I just smiled, the kind of smile that carries every unspoken lesson a mother ever gave. He thought exile would silence me. But sometimes the best revenge isn't fire or fury, it's presence. The kind that blooms right next door and never fades.
The first week in my new home was quiet, peaceful even. I spent my mornings planting roses along the fence, crimson ones that caught the sun just right. I told myself they were for decoration, but truthfully, they were my boundary line, my silent declaration, I'm still here. From my porch, I could see Jason's house perfectly. His blinds stayed closed most days, his car unmoved. Danielle pretended not to notice me, rushing from the driveway to the door like my existence was a mirror she couldn't bear to look into. I didn't wave, I didn't gloat. I just sipped my tea and let the quiet do what time never could: heal. 4 days later, someone knocked on my gate. It was Tyler, my grandson. His backpack hung low, his shoes untied, his face caught somewhere between anger and confusion. "Can I sit with you a while, Grandma?" he asked softly. I nodded, sliding him a glass of lemonade. We sat on the porch, watching the sunlight fade. He didn't talk much at first, but after a long silence, he said, "Dad told me you were sick, that you didn't remember things, but you seem fine to me." I smiled faintly. "I was always fine, sweetheart. Some people just can't handle when you stop depending on them." He laughed, short and nervous. "Dad said you moved here to bother him." I looked at the roses blooming by the fence and said, "No, Tyler. I moved here to remind him what he threw away." He stayed for dinner that night, told me how cold the house next door had become, how his parents argued more than they talked, how he missed the warmth that used to come from my kitchen. So I cooked for him: cornbread, roasted vegetables, and a slice of pie. We ate together at the little table I'd set up by the window, sunlight pooling over our plates like grace itself. By the time he left, the air between us felt lighter. As he walked down the path, he turned and said, "You're not a burden, Grandma." I blinked back a tear and whispered, "I know, baby, not anymore." That night, I sat outside under the stars. Jason's porch light flickered on, then off. I didn't look his way. He didn't deserve my attention, just my silence. Because silence, I'd learned, can echo louder than any revenge. It seeps through walls, fills empty rooms,
and whispers truth long after words have lost their meaning.
Weeks turned into months, and the roses along my fence bloomed brighter than ever. I started painting again. Small canvases of sunlight, gardens, and quiet corners that once felt unreachable. Peace had a rhythm now. The kettle's whistle, Tyler's laughter after school, the creak of the rocking chair at dusk. Jason, on the other hand, was fading. His blinds stayed drawn. Danielle's car stopped appearing altogether. The house that once hummed with smug comfort had turned into a hollow shell. Sometimes I'd see him on the porch at night, a beer can in hand, eyes empty. But I never waved. I didn't need to. Some lessons don't require an audience. One Sunday morning, I stepped outside and noticed a crooked for sale sign in their yard. I didn't smile, not out of cruelty, but because I didn't need to anymore. Revenge had already run its course. What remained was quiet justice. Tyler started coming by more often, helping me in the garden and telling me about school. His mom's in Texas, he said one evening while planting marigolds. Dad doesn't talk much. He just sits. I nodded gently. Some people live long enough to see what their choices cost. He glanced up at me. You're not mad anymore? No, I said, brushing dirt from my gloves. Anger's heavy, baby. I carried it long enough. Now I just plant things that grow. That weekend, I opened the notebook I'd once filled in the nursing home, the one where every page was a plan for survival. At the bottom, I added one final line. They buried me once. They didn't know I was a seed. The next month, I made an appointment with Clara. Together, we drafted a new will. Jason's name didn't appear once. Everything I owned, the house, my savings, even my paintings, would go to Tyler and a community fund we created together, the Mayfield Grant, for elder women left behind by the families they built. When Clara slid the signed papers back across her desk, I felt something shift inside me. Not triumph, not even pride, but release. A few weeks later, the neighborhood gathered at the community center. They asked me to speak about elder rights and financial safety. Standing at that podium, looking out at faces that mirrored my own story, I finally understood. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. They called me old. They called me a burden. But I'm still here. And that means I'm still in control of my story. So are you. The room erupted in applause, soft but steady, like a heartbeat. That night, back home, Tyler set the table and asked, "Grandma, are we okay now?" I smiled, my hand steady around a cup of jasmine tea. We're not just okay, we're free. They sent me away and called me finished, but I wasn't the ending. I was the beginning of everything they never saw coming.